Sean C. sent me the audio book, which is on YouTube, called Into the Void by Wendy Moore, an ex-girlfriend of our friend Ace Frehley. And Ace is so crazy. I'm really starting to think that Ace is the Stuttering John of rock and roll. He's so crazy, funny, stupid. I mean, just a million different things and no self-awareness whatsoever. So I just picked out a few timestamps here, which hopefully give you a little bit of an idea. The relationship did not go well. It did not end well.
I'm shocked.
You had an hour 20, Brandon?
Yes, an hour 20:58.
This is Wendy talking about Ace's sex toys and some of his proclivities.
Oh, boy.
It's pretty wacky.
Hot.
Changing because of the drugs. Ace had a fetish for hermaphrodites, chicks with dicks. We went to a porno shop on Hollywood Boulevard one night because he was always trying to find videos of them. We ended up getting a couple of videos and an assortment of sex toys. I got a small, white vibrator to replace the one I already had, which got so overheated it cracked. Ace also got me this vibrating butterfly that you wear under your underwear.
Yeah, we all know
It
the
had
butterfly.
a long, electrical cord that had a remote on the end of it to control its vibrating speed. The butterfly would then vibrate right on top of your clitoris. I call my clitoris my beam. I tried it once, but I didn't really like it and never used it again. It sat in a basket full of our new sex toys by Ace's side of the bed. He also bought this weird electrical item, which had different attachments for the end of it. Some of them looked pretty scary. It too had a remote on the end of a wire to control the speed.
Sex
Then
machine.
there was the vibrating egg. Ace would want me to insert this egg into his ass while he controlled the speed of its vibrations. I didn't particularly enjoy doing this, but he sure did. He jerked off while I did this. I don't want to say what I once found on the end of the egg when I pulled it out, but I don't think it was a baby Ruth. Later, I would find some of the sex toys that had stranger attachments to them, rusted on the floor in the shower. I'm not quite sure what had been going on in there, but there sure were some long showers.
Pause it for a
Ace
sec.
always told
Wait. So Ace would use a sex toy on himself in the shower and then just leave the attachment in the shower?
Apparently, yeah. And let it get wet and sit there for days.
It had to sit there for a long time.
It got rusted.
By the way, can this lady hire an editor? Because did we need the story about her bean?
Yeah.
No, I know. There's a lot of stupid
about
stuff
Ace.
she throws in because she's such a fucking groupie is part of the reason. Go to 135.17 and I wrote down fan mail, but I can't remember exactly what the hook is on this one.
I can't believe just the attachment is left in the shower.
Ace! Ace!
Let's buy a new one, man.
Come on, Ace!
He loved it. Ace gets a lot of gifts from fans. His room is filled with space alien keychains that light up, alien figurines, rocket ship toys, and lots of silver jewelry. He personally opens all of his fan mail, but he doesn't have time to respond to anything. He did that whenever his girlfriend in New York went through his fan mail for him. She would get too jealous and angry about the girls that were writing to him. He doesn't have time to read much, but he'd usually open anything that was more than just a letter. Ace loves pictures and jokes. I laughed a lot when girls sent their photos to him.
He never writes back, though.
Some of them were so cheesy, wearing these awful silver outfits with 80s hair. But Ace thought it was cute. If he liked the way the girl looked, he would call them. Ace didn't like depressing mail. I remember one fan letter from a girl who also sent a photo of herself. She was blonde and overweight and wrote about how she was dying. He couldn't continue reading it.
Because she was
Then there were
overweight.
the letters from little kids that were so cute. I remember one in particular from a little boy named Melvin. Ace thought that his name was so cute and kept repeating the way that Melvin may have sounded when he signed his letter. What? Ace sounded more like Marvin the Martian in the Bugs Bunny cartoon than Melvin probably sounded. You know the one. I will eliminate you with my Ludium Q36 explosive space modulator.
Imagine
Ace used to wear this one chain that had a lightning bolt on the end of it. The reason he doesn't wear it anymore is because it used to stab girls in the chest when he was having sex with them. He also said that he had sex only once while he wore his Kiss makeup. One girl begged him to, so he did, and it ended up getting all over the place and all over the girl. You never see Gene Simmons running around town wearing t-shirts with demons on them, do you? What? That's one of the things that separates Ace from Gene and Paul.
Oh, Gene's
Ace
more
never
authentic.
made
Or
up
Ace
a
is
fake
more
name for
authentic.
stage.
Go to 140.04. Ace pulls a fast one.
I don't believe that there was only one time he had sex with his makeup on.
I don't either.
Right?
No way.
Maybe outside of the arena.
But Jay dealt with it. Once in a while, he would open up to me and surprise me with some thoughtfulness. One time,
Once
he
in a
came
while.
back from New York with a gift bag for me. I looked at him in disbelief when he said, "I got you some things from New York." Inside the bag was a big plate that had a picture of New York City painted on it. Also, wrapped up in tissue was a blue shot glass. I collect blue glass
Airport
with another
gifts.
I
picture
was
of the
just gonna
city in
say
gold.
that. You got it at the
Then I found a
airport.
show scene from New York
Or someone
inside one
gave
of
it to
those
him.
clear, plastic things that you shake around. I hadn't seen one of those since Jay was a kid. The gill bag said, "To Wendy, love, Ace." He had clearly bought all of these things at the airport, but it was the thought that counted. He
was
said
the
he
thought
had
that
never even
counted.
done that kind of thing for his wife. But the flip side was that Ace could do an about-face at a moment's notice and become disrespectful, whether it was warranted or not. On days he felt especially guilty for being difficult, he would take me out. I guess this was his way of apologizing. But going out didn't necessarily help our relationship. One night we went to our usual hangout,
This is a
the
good one.
cat house, and sat upstairs in Ace's favorite corner booth. From there we could look down at all the bands that were playing. Eric Singer came over to our table with a friend and Ace asked them to leave. He told them, "Come on you guys, I haven't seen Wen in a while and I want to spend some quality time alone with
Wen
her."
for Wendy.
They understood and took off. Then, two of my girlfriends came over to our table to say hello. Ace, of course, never turned down the possibility of meeting new women. One of my friends was a cute brunette with short hair. Her name was Tamara. She looked just like Pat Benatar. My other friend, Kim, was blonde and very pretty. Elle introduced them both to Ace and all of a sudden Ace didn't want to spend time alone with me anymore. He didn't shoo them
Ace.
away like he did Eric
wanted to
Singer
spend
and
time
his
with her.
friend. They hung around our table and talked to other people. While this was going on, Ace asked me what Tamara did. I told him that she was a singer. Then he asked me what Kim did. Elle told him that she didn't do anything. He then replied as he ogled her, "She doesn't have to." I noticed he was leaning forward, towards the railing, away from me. He looked like he was writing something down, but I didn't think much of it.
Boy.
The next day, Tamara called to tell me that Ace had slipped his phone number to Kim that night and that Kim wanted to let me know. Kim also wanted to assure me she wasn't going to call him. She thought he was slipping her drugs at first. I was really surprised to hear this.
Oh, really?
And believe
come
me,
on.
it was hard to hold back and not say anything to him about it. I was mainly surprised by how good he was at accomplishing what he had done. It is really hard
He's
to
a great
slip
weasel.
anything past me.
Oh, sure.
In fact, one later found out about a lot of sneaky things Ace had done behind my back.
Oh.
Elle gave Ace a couple of personal nude, modeling pictures for his eyes only. One of them was a picture of me lying on my stomach on a pool table.
Oh, yeah, Ace
He
gave
liked that
out
one so
his
much
friends
that he
nudes
taped it
of
onto the
Wendy.
back or one of his guitars. He told me that he did that so I would be close to his cock while he was playing. I later found out from one of his friends that Ace gave him a copy of that picture along with some other nudes of me.
Oh boy.
I never said anything to him about that. But Jay did catch him in a similar act. One night at Frank and Tracy's house we were watching the movie Face Off, hanging out and doing drugs. Tracy got tired and went off to bed. She had to get up early the next morning for work. Ace gave me a Valium and I started to doze off. We were already in our night clothes, ready for bed. One was wearing a see-through, 70s, light blue, nightie for Ace. Frank had a couch that opened up into a bed. I was under the covers and had my eyes closed but was still awake. I was waiting for Frank to go to bed so that Ace and I could be alone to enjoy my nightie. But before that happened, I felt Ace slowly pulling the covers off of me while whispering to Frank, "Take a look at this." I popped my eyes open and pulled the covers back up. I was pissed. I felt so disrespected and I didn't appreciate it. Ace, of course, turned it around and accused me of pretending to be asleep to listen in on their conversation about Frank cheating on Tracy on a movie set. Later, I was
Nice
accused of
comeback,
telling
Ace.
her about it. I didn't even know what they were talking about. I wasn't paying
Why are you
any
listening
attention
on
the
me when I'm trying to show
conversation
Frank
that
your
night.
titties?
I guess I shouldn't have been so shocked about what happened with my friend Kim after all. But a few weeks later, I couldn't hold my silence about it any longer. I found the perfect time to bring it up. Ace and I were having a heated discussion about things that we had done to each other that made us both mad. When he argued that he never disrespected me, it just opened the door. I begged to differ. What about when you slipped your phone number to one of my friends while you were out with me? I asked, but it was more of a statement. He was stunned as if I had just sucker punched him. Finally, he murmured, "Oh, you knew about that." Then he turned it around and accused me of telling Kim not to call him and rationalize his bruised ego. Well, no wonder she never called me.
She would have called
I
me if you didn't
retorted,
say
"Please,
something.
she wasn't going to call you anyway. Why else do you think she told me?" Ace twisted all the facts and accused me of being jealous. I've never really seen the point of
Wow, good
jealousy.
move, Ace.
Move.
I'm a pretty secure person, and I believe
All right,
if
go to
someone doesn't
220.
like me-
Ah,
This
man.
is great. Ace is in Vegas with Wendy, and Ace gives her some money to play slots next to him, but says, "You got to give me half of any of your winnings."
What? That's not how it works.
It's Ace's money. She's investing Ace's money, so he wants half her winnings.
Given the investment. Okay, I guess it was made clear beforehand.
couple that was dressed up in
ridiculous.
Egyptian
Totally.
type costumes. I just had to get a photo with them. As we posed, Ace had to trade places with me because he said that he had to stand next to the girl, of course. After the picture, Ace brought me over to 2 slot machines that were by themselves. They were $100 slot machines.
Whoa.
I had never seen one of those before and I couldn't believe that he wanted to play them. He gave me $300 to play with since it was my lucky
That's only
number.
3 spins.
He also told me that if I won, he would get half of any of my winnings. I didn't really take him seriously. We played the slot machines together, side by side. On my last $100 bill, all of a sudden the slot machine lit up and sirens went off.
Oh, boy.
I won $2,000. Employees came over to help me as the coins flowed out of my machine. It was apparent that Ace was really jealous. He just sat there ignoring all the people who ran over to congratulate me.
Why?
He
You should be
continued
happy.
playing his machine,
wanted
murmuring
to
under
win.
his breath that he was usually the one with the good luck and
But he
that if
gets
it hadn't
half.
been for him, I wouldn't have won because it was his money I was using.
Yeah, but he wouldn't have
He
won
had to take
either.
credit for it somehow. He liked to be the only one
Such
who was
a
lucky.
dick.
He didn't share the joy of another person's good fortune. You can learn a lot about a person
Come
while
on,
gambling.
Ace.
First the craps table and now this.
Hopefully things
After
get
I
better.
turned my coins
Right?
in for cash and returned to our machines, he was adamant about me giving him half the winnings.
Oh, God.
I was bummed. I thought he would have been generous and happy. The way he demanded the money really turned me off to the point that throughout
She's
the rest
broke
of the
as
night,
fuck, by the
I
way.
kept pilfering chips from him and cashing them in behind
So
his
she starts
back.
pilfering chips.
This was totally
Cashing
against
him
my
in.
nature, but he was
Brilliant
being
move.
so petty. I couldn't stand him at that moment, and he was making me angry. Ace continued playing his slot machine, and I watched. We took advantage of the free drinks and got really drunk. 2 ladies showed up behind him and watched him play the $100 slot machine.
Oh, boy.
Ace kept losing and made a spectacle, cursing and hitting the machine. He finally turned around and yelled at the 2 ladies to go away,
Whoa!
telling them that they were bad luck.
How
It was
un-Ace.
embarrassing. They gave him dirty looks but slowly moved on.
Slowly.
Ace embarrassed the fuck out of me. Other patrons, playing their slot machines, stopped, turned around, and gawked at us. We really stood out. We were drunken spectacles. After Ace took a beating on the $100 machine, we went on to play smaller machines in the center of the casino. While playing the smaller slots, Ace came out with a weird comment about why he would never marry me.
Oh boy.
He told me that my lips were too small. He wasn't talking about the ones on my face either. I laughed so hard with embarrassment that I fell off my stool onto the floor. He explained that he likes girls who have long stretched out labia skin protruding from their vaginas. Personally, I think that looks gross. I thought most men would probably agree with me on that.
Yes.
I, myself, have the garage type of pussy. You have to pull it apart before you can see anything at all. Even when my legs are spread, it doesn't open up all the way. In other words, none of my stuff hangs out, if you know what I mean.
I kind of want to see
Other
it
men
now.
have told me I have a very nice pussy. To me,
Wait, who told
girls
her?
with long,
Lots of
stretched
men.
out lips can only mean the obvious too many times around the block.
Ooh.
So now I learned something new. In addition to Ace's fetish for small tits, he liked large lips. I lost in both departments. He actually teased me about my small
I think he
lips in
likes
front of people in
dudes.
the casino.
He does.
I got him back by telling him that he looked like the Grinch that stole Christmas because he does. Why would he even say
Because he
He
does.
does.
Our relationship was getting very childish and all our differences were surfacing. Our
Getting
drug use made the
childish.
relationship harder and harder. Was I his girlfriend?
All right, go to 228.48.
I think we learned something in that last segment, and it's the order. I mean, we knew Ace likes certain things, but now we know the order is that money is paramount,
Yeah.
and then women.
Probably.
Because he yelled at those women to get away. They were bad luck.
He was so pissed.
On a
Bad luck.
a slot machine.
He's really insistent that he has incredible luck, and he doesn't.
This idea that, well, I would have won the jackpot if I was putting the money in. That money is what won the jackpot. It's like,
Ace,
no, you won because she played on that machine.
Ace logic is consistently amazing throughout the book. He has his own logic system. All right, this is a car accident in the rental car where Ace just takes like 1 million Valium, and oh my God, he passes out driving. It's crazy.
Oh boy.
But he had popped about 10 Valium prior to us leaving that day. And strangely enough, he wanted to drive this time. He never drove, especially when he was fucked up or even planned on getting fucked up. I was always the one who drove us everywhere. I found it really peculiar that he all of a sudden wanted to drive. We got onto the Santa Monica freeway towards Malibu Beach. It was the beginning of a beautiful day. Traffic was slowing down near the Middle. National Boulevard exit. There was an accident up ahead, and as we were passing it, Ace became a rubbernecker and gawked at the aftermath of the accident instead of watching where he was going.
Sounds about right.
As I turned to look forward, I shouted, "Look out." Ace slammed on the brakes too late, and we slid into the car in front of us, pushing them into the car in front of them, and so on. We caused a 5-car pileup. The airbags exploded in the car, creating a burning rubber smell and smoke. I thought the car was going to catch on fire. I had never experienced an airbag going off before, and I was scared. I scrambled for my things and got out of the car as quickly as I could. I yelled for Ace to do the same. He took forever to get out. Everyone else got out of their cars holding their necks and getting on their cell phones. The couple in front of us gave Ace disgusted, dirty looks. They were black, so I don't think they knew who he was, other than some old white rocker guy who had just run into them.
The Grinch.
The cops soon arrived and interviewed Ace first. I noticed while he spoke to the cops that the airbag had taken his pancake makeup off from the tip of his nose. People that drove by the accident recognized him and yelled out Ace while waving their arms out their windows at him.
Sucks.
It was
Even though he loved
embarrassing.
it.
After the cops were done taking their report, they told us to get back in the car and try to remove it from the highway if it still ran. We were able to drive the car and exited at National Boulevard and found a gas station. Ace called Budget Rent-A-Car and requested that the new Mustang convertible car they bring him have a black top instead of the brown one that we had.
What?
Then he called his friend Cherie
He just got
and
in an
explained
accident.
why
Who
we were
cares what
going
kind of
to be
car?
late. She was concerned, so she said that she would come pick us up or have us follow her the rest of the way to her house. Ace instructed me to go inside the car to retrieve his stash of cocaine before the people from Budget got there. He had slipped it down into the interior of the door. He ripped the door panel open and stuck the coke down so far that his hands were too big to squeeze in and get it. My arms got scraped up from the hard plastic as I reached down trying to find the coke. I finally retrieved it and he told me to stick it in my crotch, and I did, no questions asked. Now I understood why it took him so long to get out of the car when we had the accident. Getting the coke out of the car was top priority.
Of course.
The car rental company quickly brought over another 1998 convertible Mustang. The car was identical to the one Ace had just smashed up, except it had a black top, just like Ace ordered. Ace's friend Cherie finally
Just
arrived.
like Ace ordered.
She was a healthy-looking woman wearing a hippie-like sundress with shoulder-length brown
Okay,
hair.
we're going to go to
God, he is a trip, man.
25140. This is hard to believe what you're about to hear. It's so stupid.
That's saying something.
Right before the photo session began, Ace disappeared into the bathroom and then came running out. Jay assumed that he was doing some coke but soon learned that I was wrong. He told me that he likes to stroke his cock and make it slightly hard before his picture is taken for the obvious effect of making it look as large as possible. He says that he does the same thing before he comes out on stage. He thinks that the girls in the front row will notice.
Oh my God.
Jay thought the whole idea was very Spinal Tap-ish. He might as well wrap a cucumber in tin foil and stick it down his pants. The backdrop for the shoot was just a large white piece or paper that rolled down onto the floor. They had a runway mat leading to the middle to...
Wait, I think that's all there is. 344, this is a great example of Ace's sense of humor. And yes, I laughed out loud at this stupid joke Ace makes.
By the way, nice knowing that before you take a photo with Ace, he's pulling on it in the bathroom for minutes so you can get semi.
Underneath his
had some
outfit.
deep-seated problems, so I sort of felt sorry for him after that. Ace was full of stories and I didn't know what to believe. He would sure tell them convincingly, though. The evening wound down and everybody started to leave. Jean stood by the door and said thank you and goodbye to each guest, as if it were a receiving line at a wedding. It was quite an impressive gesture on Jean's part. When it was my turn, I gave Jean a big hug and he hugged me back and said, "You really made my night tonight, thank you." It was a sincere hug that made me feel good. Not only was it hard to make him laugh, but now he'd actually said that I had made his night. Ace, my brother, and I were waiting outside for the valet low bring the car around when Jean came running out of the club. He pointed his finger at me and yelled, "Make sure you drive." So I got into the driver's seat while he watched to make sure I really was going to drive. I drove down Santa Monica Boulevard and for some reason the car slid really strangely to one side, but then was okay. Ace immediately cackled, "We must have slid on some gay cum," and then started laughing insanely. Ace's laugh
We
was
slid on
infectious.
some gay cum.
I have to admit, his comment was pretty funny.
Is that more
He
slip?
wasn't necessarily prejudiced against anyone.
Wait.
Some gay cum. Cum is cum.
And cum is known for being sticky, not slippery.
We slipped on some gay cum. What?
Well, he would know.
That was the most ridiculous joke I've ever heard.
I love that it comes right after about what a tough laugh he is. And then that's the joke he came up with. Probably thought it was hilarious. Gay cum. And that's a fun thing to say.
All right,
Why
358.
gay cum?
Ace in a cocaine psychosis. This is a pretty good one.
God.
Yeah, he's doing a little too much blow.
Little did I know I was about to walk in on Ace's cocaine nightmare. When I got there, I opened the door and all of the lights were out. I stumbled on a booby trap of pots and pans like a Three Stooges episode. I didn't know what was going on. I crept across the entry hall and found Ace in the dark with a flashlight.
What?
He said, "When? Is that you?" Sticking the flashlight in my face, he looked at me with a crazed look and asked, "Why didn't you tell me that you've been talking to the sea?" Confused, I said, "What the hell are you talking about? And what are you doing?" My eyes adjusted to the dark and I looked around the condo to see that he had ripped up the wallpaper behind all the mirrors and made holes in the walls. I asked him again what he was doing. He said, "Come here," and led me to a wall that he had dug a hole in. He pointed the flashlight at the hole and pulled out some phone wires and said, "See these wires? I have a feeling they aren't for the phone." Then he went into the bathroom and showed me how he'd torn up the wallpaper that was around the mirror. He said that he thought there were hidden cameras. That's when I knew that he had completely lost his mind. The paranoia from so much cocaine and pills had finally taken over. It was really scary. And, I thought, this is a guy that has a huge gun collection with lots of ammunition. I didn't know what to do with him.
Yeah, Ace
The
is just
cocaine had
poking
convinced
holes in
him
the
that he
wall
was
and
being
digging out
spied on
wires,
by
saying,
the
"Somebody's
CJ.
spying on me!"
I knew he needed help, but you just couldn't talk to him. I wanted to stay with him because I was so worried, but he just insisted on me giving back his set of keys for the condo. I
All right,
thought
go
about
to 504. It's about Betsy's condo. Betsy is Ace's new girlfriend, but Ace still talks to Wendy because Wendy's boyfriend picks up drugs for him all the time.
Of course, so he has to.
Yeah, and he pays them to do various little errands he doesn't want to run, so they're still very close. And Wendy knows Betsy, even though she's Ace's new girlfriend. And she is, I believe she's at rehab. She's got this beautiful, expensive condo from her divorce. And she's also got I think a black Mercedes, which Ace is driving like a madman. He's also letting Wendy and her boyfriend drive all over the fucking place while she's in rehab. So she's going there to clean Betsy's condo. Betsy hasn't been there for a long time. It's a horrible fucking mess because Ace has been running it.
Staying there. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
the other drove. Ace returned from his New York trip and asked me to clean Betsy's condo before she came back.
Yeah,
He
boy.
gave me $80 for about 4 hours' work. When I came
Cheap.
over, there were empty boxes all over the place. The once exquisite condo was now a wreck with more Kiss items displayed all over the house.
What?
There were 4 large busts of each band member, another Kiss clock, more Kiss phones,
He
a Kiss
redecorated?
lava lamp, and Kiss bookends of each
Kiss
band
lava
member.
lamp.
It was insane. Of course, all of the new Kiss dolls were there too. On the dolls of Ace, I noticed that there was a lightning bolt on his crotch area. I told him that he should have that put on his real costume. I thought that would be a good idea, considering that he wants the girls to look there anyway. If the dolls have it, why shouldn't he? I couldn't believe he didn't like my idea. It reminded me of what Ace had told me about the album cover for Hotter Than Hell. He had said the Japanese symbol that happened to be placed over his crotch area made the Japanese girls think that he had FL powerful cock. The symbol means power in Japanese. Ace showed us an original Kiss keychain from the 70s that he'd brought back from New York. It was a silver and black cutout of his head. Supposedly it was valued at $450. It wasn't even made out of real silver. He gave it to Betsy, a girl who doesn't even really like Kiss. The green monster had reared its ugly head.
She's so jealous.
Ace had known me for a lot longer than he'd known her, and she was getting all this cool stuff. He had promised to give me his old laptop computer, and he never had. Instead, he'd ended up buying a new one for Betsy. Besides the trinkets from New York and photos of himself, the only things Ace ever gave me were 2 silver rings that he didn't wear anymore. One was a yin-yang and the other one was a skull with scotch tape wrapped around it because it was too big for him anyway. Of course, I had tons of guitar pies and packs of his signature guitar strings, but those weren't anything special. Also, when we were cleaning out his room one time, we came across some Kiss cards and Frehley's Comet merchandise that he let me have, buttons and stuff like that. Ace was good at breaking promises. I remember when he told me that my band could open for the last Kiss tour,
Good at
but of
breaking
course that never happened. I
not even
remember
up
the
to him.
exact words that he'd said to me when we were discussing it. We were in the studio working on my demo when he said, "Sure, I'll hook you up. I would do anything for you, you know that." Ace doesn't realize that you just can't make those kinds of promises to people and then not follow through, especially promising a fame-starved artist that she could open for you on a world tour. Now that I think about it, he wouldn't even have been the person to ask, because he's not the one who'd be making those kinds of decisions anyway.
All right.
At least Bruce Coolidge.
5'11", 17. This is about Ace fucking up Betsy's life.
Betsy had a
After he's
lot of
moved on.
enemies in the building because of the noise
It's a
from her
human
late-night
wrecking ball.
partying. Neighbors would call the police on her constantly. She blamed this all on Ace. She also criticized him for being too lazy and inconsiderate to listen for important calls that she needed to get. She lost a lot of important auditions because of Ace. He never took messages for her, even when he answered call waiting calls. He moved in, took over her place and became a parasite. She was an emotional, hysterical wreck. Josh had held her and suggested that maybe she should cut back on the cocaine. She finally fessed up to doing too much of it with Ace. She said she couldn't understand why she had let him come into her life and take over like he had. She cried, everything just happened so fast. I totally understood. I'd been there, done that, and I'm still paying for the t-shirt. Josh and I tried to have a heart-to-heart with her, but I reminded her of how she'd stabbed me in the back by telling Ace about what I had told her in confidence about his cheating. By the time we took off, Betsy was sounding like she really wanted to try to get her life back on track. But the very next day when Josh and I went over to Ace's, it was a different story. Betsy was acting as if everything was fine again.
Of course.
She was on the floor in a skimpy leotard doing her stretches with her legs over her head and her twat up in the air. It was embarrassing to watch with Josh. When she got up and bent forward, you could see these weird ripples going down the center of her chest where her breast implants were. The sides of her breasts looked like Ruffles potato chips. It seemed that Ace and her were on some kind of a workout kick. Ace appeared wearing these black spandex pants that flared on the bottom, almost like bell bottoms, and a half shirt. He rarely wore a half shirt
like
because
Ace
it
is gonna work
displayed his
out.
strange-looking belly button. Ace always talked about this porno DVD he had that showed this girl who had a clit the size of a grape. Well, Ace's belly button looked like the grape itself. Betsy told us that she and Ace had talked things over and that everything was fine. I knew from experience that this was only a temporary calm, most likely inspired by coke. I did and said a lot of crazy things when I was on cocaine too. One day would always be different from the next. It was like I was two different people. I would agree to something one day and think it was the best
All right,
idea ever.
5/19/12. Ace is broken up from Wendy, but he wants a threesome with Wendy.
Of course he does. Yeah.
And her
They're
boyfriend,
broken up.
and her new boyfriend is there. I think I'm pretty sure.
Is he the third guy? Is that what he
I
wants?
can't remember what Ace wants here.
For it to not bother him. Ace would try to get a threesome going, and when Josh and I refused, he would always say demeaning things like, "What's the big deal? Everyone in this room has seen Wendy naked anyway." Josh and I would try not to encourage
So
any
what?
of these
He
conversations.
did want the guy.
It was
I
sort
guess
of hard
so.
for me, because I worried about Josh's feelings. I didn't want him to be uncomfortable. Another provocative thing
But
Ace
you're
would
hanging
do
out with
whenever Josh
Ace, your
wasn't in the
ex,
room
who's in
was ask
Kiss.
who has the better cock, Josh or me?
Who has the
I
better
would give him
cock?
a strange look. I wouldn't know how to answer. Then he would continue. I know you don't want to say anything to hurt anyone's feelings, but I know it's me, right? I couldn't believe the way he acted.
Come on,
He
there's
was
only
so
one answer
insecure.
then. It's the other
I
guy.
didn't want to answer him because I actually didn't want to hurt his feelings.
Oh,
In reality, Josh has a way nicer cock than Ace's. It's actually the nicest I've ever seen.
oh, come on,
But I
knock it
felt
off.
told Ace the truth. It wouldn't have made a difference.
That's true.
He would have just accused me of lying. And what would that have mattered?
That's a good
March
point.
10th, 2000. It was nearing the concert date of Kiss's farewell tour.
Okay, 5/26/50. This is
Things that matter to Ace.
she goes to the last Kiss concert on that tour, which I think is 99. I think, and for some reason,
Is that her? She's good looking.
yeah, she's very pretty.
I hear she has a nice pussy.
It's an innie.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's a lot of jokes about Paul here that I'm confused about. I don't know. It's just kind of weird.
The show started off great. The band came down from the ceiling onto the stage on a huge platform. My heart kept jumping, and so did the rest of M Tilda, each time the pyrotechnics went off. I just couldn't get used to them. I got frightened every time. Josh would laugh at me every time it happened too. I found out a long time ago how to get noticed in a crowd of screaming, jumping fans. Stand still. Ace found me right away, and we kept eye contact throughout the entire show, especially during all of the mishaps. Betsy showed up late and stood next to us. She had a special pass around her neck, and so did her annoying friends. That allowed them to have all access at any
This really
time.
burns her up.
During the show, I noticed that Paul wore a new, full wig. It was straight instead of curly, like his hair had always been. In the 70s, the way Paul moved on stage looked really good. But watching him now, I thought he looked so faggy. All of a sudden, it just didn't seem to work for him anymore. People up front with us were mocking fun of him, and so were my brother, Josh, and I. Paul shouted to the audience, I have something I want to tell you. I yelled out to him, what? That you're really a woman? Everyone around us laughed.
Yeah, boy.
Then he made
Great
a
line.
comment about the men that were on stage fixing his wireless transmitter that was attached to his back. He said, normally I don't let men get this close to my behind. The audience heckled him with words of disbelief. One guy yelled out, only boys. The night had its Spinal Tap moments. The first mishap happened to Paul. He was hanging on a wire, sort of like Peter Pan, and was supposed to be swung out to a podium in the center of the audience. There he was to start singing the song that the band had already started playing. But he didn't get there in time. He got stuck a little ways from the podium hanging over the audience. The fans were trying to grab him. The song went on without him, with Gene singing instead while Paul was hung out to dry. It was Love Gun and Gene didn't even know the lyrics, but he tried anyway. At that moment I wished so much that I could have jumped
Okay,
up on the stage.
that's about the end
and
of
said,
the Ace book or Wendy's book. But let's take a couple cuts from Gene's book because they were right underneath it on YouTube, and I couldn't resist. Gene just comes out of the chapter flying, talking about Ace. Shit. As Ace would, or as Gene would say.
Who would you rather?
Fucker.
Who would you rather hang out with?
Ace or Gene?
Yeah, because Gene is always very serious.
But Gene, there's something very entertaining about Gene.
Oh, there's everything entertaining about Ace. It just is going to get weird at some point.
This is it. Ace Frehley is a greedy,
Paranoid.
backstabbing junkie.
I got it.
Okay.
That's a direct quote from Gene Simmons.
Ace Frehley is a greedy,
Paranoid,
paranoid, backstabbing junkie.
Couldn't you see him say
First, I was named Chaim Vitz.
Yeah, we heard this.
Chaim is a Hebrew word that means life, and Vitz was my father's last name. Here's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. People say that certain couples are like oil and water. Well, we were like oil and water and water and water, the four of us. Between Ace and Peter, with their various insecurities, it was a nightmare from the very first day the band ever got together. What? They drank and were attracted to violence. Whether it's the local bully or the mafia guy, that's the hero, the icon of all icons. When I wasn't chasing girls, I was trying to keep Ace and Peter out of trouble. It took some doing, especially in Ace's case. Originally, Peter and Ace had roomed together, but after a while, they didn't get along. Peter asked me if I would mind if he roomed with Paul, and I roomed with Ace. It didn't bother me. We were all in the
I
same
think Gene
band.
likes to keep an eye on Ace.
Yeah.
One night I was going down to the hotel bar to see if there were any girls for the taking.
Ace is totally
I asked Ace
scared
if
of
he wanted
Gene,
to come
too.
along.
He always thinks
Nah, he
someone's
said,
watching him
"You
for
go
Gene.
ahead. I'll be down in a little while." I went by myself, and of course there were girls, and I started talking to them.
For the taking.
And after a while, though, I started to wonder where Ace was. I called up to the room, and no one answered. Then I got a little worried. I got one of the hotel managers, and we went to the room and knocked on the door, but there was no answer. Finally, we smashed open the door. Ace was in the bathtub, passed out, and slumped down with the water rising. His mouth was just above the water. He would have died in a minute.
Oh, you saved him.
Oh,
He
what a
smelled
hero.
like a pickled herring.
What?
Pulled him out of the water naked and put him to bed.
Gross.
What a hero.
I stayed up all night to make sure he didn't roll over and fall to the ground, which he did anyway.
Yeah, right.
Or
Wait,
throw
what?
up and choke on his own vomit.
Which he did
By
anyway.
the
Then he
next
did a
morning,
bad
I
job.
was exhausted. Ace wasn't. He bounded out of bed, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. "Hey," he said, "I stayed in last night and went to bed early. What did you do?" I didn't remember a single minute of the ordeal. We were at one of our first shows, and the truck was loaded up, and we were ready to leave. Ace wasn't doing anything. He always had guys who lifted things for him, and he was peeing. We're waiting for him, and the truck's lights are on him. He walks over and says, "This is what my dick looks like when it's soft."
Is that his
He
Ace
wanted to show us
impersonation?
that he had the inches. The only saving grace that night
Jeez.
was that I was finally proud of my manhood and couldn't imagine anything getting bigger. The record label rented us cars, but that was just asking for trouble. Ace had decided to see how well and how fast he could drive his car down a winding Beverly Hills mountain. As it turned out, he couldn't do it very well.
Yeah,
He smashed up the car and his face. For the photo, we had to superimpose the left side of his
What?
made-up face over the scarred right side.
What? Why?
Bob Ezrin's time with the band was very tough for Ace and Peter.
He
Or at
fucked up
least
the
that's
side
how
of his
they
face.
saw
Yeah,
it.
but you're just gonna cover it in
Paul
kiss
and I had
makeup.
always been critical of Ace and Peter because they didn't get the big picture. And here was this guy from the outside doing the same thing, only 10 times more intensely. Paul and I used to talk about who was taking the experience harder. In retrospect, I think both of them were feeling quite defeated, although their feelings manifested in different ways. Ace would simply leave. Sometimes he wouldn't show up at recording sessions. On one occasion, he wanted to leave early because he had a card game at 7 that evening. At some point, Bob didn't worry about Ace or his excuses. He simply got another guitar player to come in and play Ace's parts. Mainly, he was a guy called Dick Wagner who played with the Lou Reed Band. He was not credited, and to this day, people think it's Ace on the album.
Look at that picture
Ace
of Ace.
felt as if Paul and I especially were traitors, and that we told
Looks like
Bob
Danny
Ezrin to
Bonaducci
get
a little
another
bit.
guitar
Just a
player
little.
because we never wanted him in the band anyway. Yet we were the ones who brought him into the band, pushed him to write his own songs, and asked him to be more than a guitar player and sing his own songs. He was oblivious to that and continues to be. We wrote new songs for one side of Alive 2. When we finally went into the studio, Ace simply never showed up. We had to use other guitar players like Bob Kulick and Rick Derringer. Ace was more furious than ever. "How could you do it without me?" he raged. How could we? Because these other guys showed up. This wasn't the first, nor would it be the last of countless times Ace would turn his back on the band. Regardless, even without Ace, Alive 2 went on to be another multi-platinum double
I had no
disc
idea Ace
set.
didn't plan that album.
Midway through 1978, Hanna-Barbera, the famous cartoon producers,
Okay.
approached us
This is a
about
solid
making a
story.
movie. We had an initial meeting, and they told us about the idea. And we shrugged our shoulders and said, "Sounds fine." We had 2 writers with us who were writing the script for Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. And they wanted to
movie,
get a
yeah.
sense of how everybody talked before they wrote the script. Ace in those days was non-communicative. He didn't say much. No matter what you said to him, he would make the parrot sound, "Awk." Nobody understood it.
What?
And when he wasn't making the parrot noise, he would mumble nonsense to himself. 13 for a dozen, or I kills them all, one by one. And then he would laugh.
What?
These phrases meant something only
Or
to
we
Ace.
slipped on gay
and
cum.
nobody had a clue what he was talking about. When the script came in, Ace's character never spoke. He only said, "Awk." Ace was furious. He wanted to know why they didn't give him any lines. To their credit, they turned around and said, "What are you, nuts? You have never said anything to us except awk. We thought that's the way you want to talk." Ace said he had a lot to say. Well, he should have said it.
You should have
The problems kept
He should have
surfacing,
said it.
though. Most of them originated with Ace, who kept shooting himself in the foot, and Peter kept following right along. At one point, Ace started saying, "That's it, I'm leaving. I'm going to do my own solo record." So Bill Aucoin said, "Look, don't leave the band. Let's all do solo records. Maybe what we need is time away from each other." Everybody agreed. The solo album was a big boost for Ace. For the first time, he was thrilled.
This might have ruined Ace,
because
the
he
fact
could
that
walk
his solo
into a
album did
room
so well.
and be the only star. The guy who had his own thing going on, his own album with his own face on the cover. The irony was that when he first joined the band, he didn't want to sing or write songs. He just wanted to be the guitar player. We had forced him to start writing songs. Ace has always struck me as never living up to his potential. He could play guitar, write songs, and do any number of other things, but he's never applied himself. He's admitted
Sounds like
to
his
being
teacher,
chronically
doesn't he?
lazy
Oh, well,
and
he
a
was.
flake.
He kind of was.
He can put an idea together that has a spark of brilliance, but he won't go that extra mile to get trademarks and copyrights.
That extra mile.
You can see hundreds
stuff
of
that
guitar
really
straps
matters, right?
today, for example, with big lightning bolt designs on them, straps that are used by everyone from country acts to rap bands. That's Ace's design. He walked in one day with this strap, and I said, "That's great. Let's trademark that. It'll sell like hotcakes." I had a heart-to-heart talk with him. He just wouldn't do it. After the fact, I said, "You really missed out on a big one." He said, "I'll think of another one." I never did.
You gotta admire that.
While Eric was such a positive force, Ace was going deeper and deeper into seclusion. Although he liked Eric very much, he couldn't really hang out with him because Eric wouldn't get high. So, more and more, Ace went off to Las Vegas with his friends and gambled and drank and drove his fast cars too fast. We decided we needed Bob Ezrin back in our lives.
All right,
because he
try
was the guy who
2019, Brandon. I think this is a short thing about Ace.
Yeah, two guys in a band that couldn't be polar opposites.
No.
It's really funny.
She's so disgusted
I
by
know.
Ace.
For all the wonderful feeling that passed between the band and the fans, the old problems were cropping up again.
So when they reunited in the
think people
90s,
will
mid-90s.
Okay.
You hope they will change. You expect them to mature, to learn from their mistakes. But they don't. Ace would constantly ask questions about the number of people showing up at the concerts. These would be concerts in places we had played before, and the halls and stadiums hadn't changed in size. But he wanted to know whether anybody was hiding any tickets. Astonishingly, Ace was oblivious to the fact that he had a flat deal. If nobody showed up, or if it sold out, he still got the same amount of money for each show he played. If he didn't play, he didn't get paid. I kept repeating that to him every time he asked. I didn't understand why he was agonizing over it. Then I found out that he wasn't just asking me. He would ask Doc, our manager, how many people showed up tonight? And Doc would say, "Oh, I don't know, maybe 15,000 people." Then Ace would produce a piece of paper from the concert hall, a schematic that showed the seating
course.
arrangements.
Of course.
On the bottom, it would say, "Capacity, 19,000. And he would bring me the paper and shake his head and say, "See? More lies." Keep in mind it said capacity.
Yeah.
But it was just like Ace to ignore that, or not to know what capacity meant. It seemed as if he
paid a
didn't
fee.
understand the difference between
paid the
capacity
same.
and attendance, or that because our stage show was so big, we had to kill 3,000 or 4,000 seats. Ace generally needed diversions. He had flown in a bodyguard to keep him company. Ace's reasons for companionship,
To keep him company.
be it girlfriend or bodyguard, We're usually to get him
I think
ice for his
that's
drinks.
about the end, I think.
God,
That whole part is just
great.
The chapter on Ace, honestly, it's all what a fuck up he is. That's all the whole fucking chapter.
He's never done anything good, and anything he's done good was because we forced him to.
He could never go the extra mile.
They made him write songs. Come on.